What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about some awesome older flagships that you can get for around the $400 price point where you don't have to break the bank for the holidays. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, the first device I'm going to talk about is the Pixel 7 Pro. This phone got a pretty nice price drop. So earlier in the year it was around like 500, 600, but now it's come down to this $400 price point, and I think it's a really solid option considering that it's not really that old of a flagship. So this phone has an aluminum frame, it's got a glass back, it's IP68 dust and water resistant, and it's got the classic, Pixel design on here. And then we also have a 6.7-inch LTPO AMOLED display. It's 120 Hz with HDR10 plus at 1500 nits max brightness, and it's pretty good. It does a fairly good job outdoors, and then it has a full 1440p resolution with 512 for the PPI. Overall, a fantastic flagship display, very nice colors, and like I said, very high res display here. This phone, it is going to be running Android 14, and the good thing about Pixel devices is that you're first to try the major OS update. So when Android 15 comes out, you'll be one of the first to get the betas. And then it's running the Google Tensor G2 processor, which is a pretty good chip for the most part. I think for the average person, I had really no issues with performance. Playing PUBG and just bouncing in and out of applications, multitasking. The phone is buttery smooth, so I had no issues with performance on here. And I actually think Pixels are some of the smoothest devices when it comes to animations and just the overall feel. So this phone does have 128 gigs of internal storage and 8 gigs of RAM on the base model. The stereo speakers on here are pretty good. They have a good amount of bass, fairly loud. You also do have the under the display fingerprint sensor on here as well too. And then this phone also has fantastic cameras, guys. So I think some of the best cameras actually on this list. So if you're really into taking photos, this is going to give you some of the best stills. It's got a 50 megapixel standard, a 48 megapixel telephoto with 5 times optical, and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It also shoots in 4K 60, and then you have a 10.8 megapixel ultra wide selfie cam that also shoots in 4K 60. The shots are absolutely fantastic on here. Like I said, it pretty much takes identical photos to the Pixel 8 Pro for the most part, so you're getting a fantastic top tier camera for just $400, which I think is a really good deal. Video is actually pretty solid on here. I actually film all of my shorts with my Pixel as well, if you guys didn't know. But yeah, so I'm actually a huge fan of the Pixel cameras. Great skin tones, good dynamic range, just awesome image processing in general. This phone does have a somewhat decent battery life. It's a 5000 milliamp hour battery, 23 watt wire charging, which I think honestly is a little bit slow for a flagship. 23 watt wireless charging, and you also have the reverse wireless charging. Battery life is just pretty standard on the Pixel 7 Pro. You can easily get around 6 hours of screen on time, but it's a fantastic device at this price, guys. All right, next is the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, and this one is a kind of a bizarre one because this phone has actually gone up a little bit in price. So last year it was kind of floating around 350, but now it's kind of 400 and above now, which I thought was pretty interesting because you don't see Android phones kind of like stay this steady year after year. But this one has actually went up a little bit because I remember it was like around 350, 360, but now you have to pay like $400 to get this now. But it's still a fantastic phone, and the main reason is because it simply just has SD card support, and it's still getting security patches, so it's just in high demand. I even underestimated how much people really want SD card support. But this phone is still an awesome phone. It's stainless steel frame, it's IP68 dust and water resistant, and it has the built-in S Pen, of course, and it has that super boxy design. And a lot of people have said the design has grown on them a lot, and I think the design, I've always kind of liked it. It just depends on, I think, which color you get it in. The display on here is also kind of unique for a Samsung flagship because it's very big at 6.9 inches. I think the Galaxy S23 Ultra is 6.8, so this is a pretty big phone. It's a dynamic AMOLED display. It's 120 Hz HDR10 plus, and it's a 1440p display, 496 for the PPI. But the thing about the display is that it can only be used at 120 Hz at 1080p. But besides that, it's a curved panel, and it looks fantastic still in 2023. Absolutely a beast when it comes to performance, and it actually does pretty decent outdoors as well too in direct sunlight. This phone got its last major OS update with Android 13 One UI 5.1, and it's also running the Snapdragon 865 chip, And like I said, micro SD card support, 128 gigs of internal storage, and 12 gigs of RAM on the base. And yeah, gaming performance is actually still excellent on this phone. I play PUBG, Call of Duty Mobile, Fortnite. I did a whole gaming test with this phone. It still plays really well. It's able to play PUBG at 90 frames still. There's nothing that the phone can't actually play in the Play Store. So it's just a overall fantastic phone when it comes to performance. It's still very fast. Still. Now, this phone also has pretty good speakers, pretty good amount of bass, pretty full sound, fingerprint scanner, of course, face unlock, all that good stuff. The cameras on here are also still pretty good. It's a 108 megapixel standard. It's got a 12 megapixel periscope telephoto with 5 times optical. It goes all the way up to 50 times hybrid zoom, and then you have a 12 megapixel ultra wide with 8K 24 video, and then a 10 megapixel selfie with 4K 60. It still takes pretty good shots. I don't have an issue with it. I think outdoors it still takes really good shots, great dynamic range, great color. My only issue with this camera is the selfie cam. I think it's starting to show its age a little bit. It just sort of does not handle darker skin tones as well as I would like it to. You have to do like some post editing to get your skin tone actually right. But besides that, it still takes a fantastic pictures for the most part. This phone also has somewhat okay battery life. It's 4500 milliamp hour battery. It's not anything too special. 25 watt wired charging, and again, it's kind of slow. 15 watt wireless and reverse wireless charging. So battery life, I typically can almost squeeze about 6 hours of screen on time out of this, depending on what you're doing. So battery life is just okay. It's been okay. It was never super good when the phone first came out. But yeah, so the Note 20 Ultra is a fantastic phone. All right, so one of the next phones is the S21 Ultra, and you know, it's the same price as the Note 20 Ultra, so you guys can see how outrageous the price is on the Note 20 Ultra. The newer phone is about the same, and actually the S21 Ultra you can find a little bit cheaper. It's actually a little bit under $400, not by much, but it is still technically cheaper, which I thought was hilarious. But the S21 Ultra, like I said, if I did not have a phone and I wanted an old flagship, I would get this phone 100%. So this phone has the aluminum frame. It's got IP68 dust and water resistant. A lot of people forget this phone actually has S Pen support. So if you get an S Pen or the S Pen case, it will work with this phone. And yeah, it's just an awesome design. It's way easier to hold than something like the Note as well too for anyone with smaller hands. And yeah, so the display on here, it's a dynamic AMOLED display. It's 120 Hz HDR10 plus, 1500 nits peak brightness at 6.8 inches. It's 1440p 515 for the PPI. Overall, just a beautiful display on here. Like I said, you can take advantage of the 120 Hz at the full resolution, and it's, like I said, way easier to hold. It's a really comfortable phone, even though it's a big phone. Also, this phone just got the Android 14 update. I just did a video on it, One UI 6, and guys, it will get the Android 15 update as well too, and then it'll get security patches after that. So you can keep this phone for a long time, and you do have the Snapdragon 888 processor on here, and this phone has been really good performance wise. This phone, like I said, gets a little bit warmer than I would like to when you're gaming for a long period of time. I've never had it crash on me, but just for like general stuff, performance wise, it's a a pretty fast phone, and it gets the job done. No issues at all with performance. It's got 128 gigs of internal storage and 12 gigs of RAM on the base. And the speakers on here sound fantastic, really good speakers, ultrasonic fingerprint scanner, face unlock, all that good stuff. The cameras are actually really good, and I would say if you're looking for an older Samsung Galaxy phone, it does take better photos than the Note 20 Ultra. In my opinion, it's got a 108 megapixel standard, a 10 megapixel periscope telephoto, and especially when it comes to like zoom shots, this phone does a much better job at zoom shots. It's got a 10 times optical zoom, then a 10 megapixel telephoto, 3 times optical, then a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It has the 100 times hybrid zoom on here, and then you also have the 8K 24 video with a 40 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 60. Like I said, this phone takes really good pictures, and like I said, fantastic zoom shots on this phone as well too. You would be shocked at the kind of photos you can get at 10 times, 20 times, even 30 times. It's still going to give you some really nice crispy shots. This phone has pretty good battery life, pretty decent, nothing special. 5000 milliamp hour battery, 25 watt wire charging, and wireless and reverse wireless charging as well too. So you can get around 6 hours of screen on time pretty easy, but this is a fantastic device, highly recommended. Alright, so if you are more into iPhones and you have a budget of $400, I would get the iPhone 13. I know the iPhone 12 is a little bit tempting, but The iPhone 13 will be better for just keeping it over a longer period of time. So I would go on eBay to get this because the prices are a little bit higher on Amazon. So you can find these on eBay for like 425 right now. And it's a fantastic phone. Like I said, you got the aluminum frame on here. You got IP68 dust and water resistant. It's got a fairly modern design as well too, especially from the back. Looks like, you know, any other iPhone, basically like the iPhone 15. You also have the Retina XDR OLED display on here. It's HDR10. It has 1200 nits peak brightness at 6.1 inches, so it's kind of a one-hand phone. It's got 1170 by 2532, 460 for the PPI. Overall, a very nice display, very sharp, no issues at all with the display on here. This phone is running iOS 17, and it will get updates for, you know, years to come. And then you also have 128 gigs of internal storage and 4 gigs of RAM. The Apple A15 chip is absolutely a beast on this phone. It is still blazing fast. You really can't tell a difference between a 13 and a 15 in my opinion. It's just really fast when it comes to performance, gaming, all that stuff. You really won't have to worry about anything like that when it comes to performance. The speakers are fantastic on here, plenty of bass, very loud speakers on here. Face ID, and the cameras on here I think still look really good. Honestly, with Apple, the way they upgrade their cameras, they do such small upgrades. I can't really tell the difference between like a 13, a 14, even like compared to the 15. It's got a 12 megapixel standard and a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It has 4K 60 video and then a 12 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 60 as well. Like I said, it takes just as good photos as the iPhone 14 and honestly a 15 in my opinion, especially when you're outdoors. You can barely tell the difference. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about anything with the cameras. They still are excellent if you're going to be doing social media, taking videos or whatever. Dynamic range, color, even indoor shots are still pretty decent on here. Yeah, so no issues at all with the 13's camera. Battery life is actually somewhat decent. It's a 3200 or 3240 milliamp hour battery. It has 15-watt wireless charging. You do have MagSafe on here, so you can take advantage of the accessories. You have wireless charging as well too. And overall, it's a fairly good device to buy, guys. If you're looking for an iPhone, I would actually spend that extra money because you're going to get longer iOS updates. All right, lastly is the S22 Plus, and this is a fantastic phone for $400 because if you're planning on keeping your phone for a long time, like I said, this last year's flagship, and it's going to get longer updates as well too. And overall, I just really like this phone for the price. Aluminum frame, it's got IP68 dust and water resistant, and I think design wise it still has that really nice modern look to it as well too. It's got the dynamic AMOLED display. It's 1750 nits peak brightness, so very bright display outdoors at 6.6 inches, 1080p 393 for the PPI, and this one is a completely flat display unlike the S21 and the Note 20 Ultra. So keep that in mind if you're a fan of that. Also, this phone is upgradable to Android 14 One UI 6, and it's running the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor, which is a fantastic chip. Very fast phone, very efficient. I had a breeze just playing games and stuff like that. Performance wise, super snappy phone. It's also 128 gigs of internal storage and 8 gigs of RAM on board. Has stereo speakers as well too, and it has the under the display fingerprint sensor as well. And I think the cameras on here are pretty much the best you're going to get as far as stills when it comes to photography. I think it's going to be a little bit better than the S21 Ultra, the Note 20 Ultra. So if you're looking for the best photo taker for a Samsung device at this price point, I think an S22 Plus would be a really good option. It's 50 megapixels, 10 megapixel telephoto, 3x optical with a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots in 8K 24 with a 10 megapixel selfie cam as well too, and it does a fantastic job, whether it's standard photos, ultra wide. Now it does lack the zooming capabilities that the ultra phones have, but if you don't zoom a lot, and it'll just be fine for just taking like still photos. Really good low light shots as well too. Excellent video, so it does a fantastic job with the cameras. You also have really good battery life on here, believe it or not. So it's got a 4500 milliamp hour battery, 45-watt wired charging, so it charges decently fast, and then you have wireless and reverse wireless charging as well too. And that's probably my like one of my favorite things about this phone. Battery life and standby time is pretty good on here, and the cameras I think are top notch. Yeah, so that's my list, guys. Be sure to let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.